remind them to be submissive to rulers and authorities, to be obedient, to be ready for every good work, to speak evil of no one, to avoid quarreling, to be gentle, and to show perfect courtesy toward all people. For we ourselves were once foolish, disobedient, led astray, slaves to various passions and pleasures, passing our days in malice and envy, hated by others, and hating one another.
In the year 2022, certain things like masks have the power to cause a serious emotional reaction in people. For some people, it's a soft, comforting reminder that we're all working together to keep each other safe, while for others, it's a breathtaking realization that even the most basic of freedoms somehow no longer exist. Really, no one was talking about masks until 2020, when masks became a significant part of the conversation and eventually became a necessity just to live a normal life. And overnight, these insignificant pieces of cloth that no one even cared about before became something that people had an emotional investment in and a belief that became something more of a religion. This video isn't about masks, though. This video is about algorithms. It's hard to even put a face on what an algorithm is. Algorithm is something that we can't see or feel or hear or touch, but it's something that has a significant effect on the way that we live our lives and the beliefs that we carry around with us day to day. When having a politically fueled discussion with somebody who's subjected to an opposite algorithm than you, it's almost as if you live in a different universe. You may consider yourself to be well-informed, or maybe you're just getting your information here and there from whatever comes up on your feed. Either way, the information that you're getting may very well be one-sided. When members of your family or friends go online, they may be subjected to an opinion that's the exact opposite of the one that you're getting. They may be subjected to videos of experts with facts that oppose the facts that you got from experts in the same field. In my life, I started to see a very spiritual and demonic essence to algorithms, and I decided to look up what an algorithm really was or where it came from. I decided to start with the origin of the word algorithm. This is what I found.
13c. From medieval Latin algorismus, a mangled transliteration of Arabic al-Khwarizmi, native of Khwarizma, surname of the mathematician whose works introduced sophisticated mathematics to the West. See algebra.
So, algorithm comes from the word algebra, which makes a lot of sense. But another word that is linked to the word algorithm is the name of a star, Algol, the demon star.
This unlucky star is actually known as Algol, and Algol stems from the word Ras al-Ghul, which in Arabic means head of the ogre, or I guess it's very similar to the word ghoul that we have today. So basically, it was a kind of a creature associated with death and unfortune. In English, it also has a name, demon star, because why not? And in Hebrew, it's known as Satan's head, or Rosh Hasatan. And so basically, this is a very unlucky star. As a matter of fact, people that used to do astronomy-based magic always associated this star with a lot of darkness and dark magic.
Algorithms might have a spiritual component. Algorithms write newspaper headlines and even some newspaper stories. They detect faces and pair soulmates. They recommend books and movies, they build your playlists, they influence your search results and decide which of your friends and YouTube subscriptions you see the most of. The force of algorithms is incredible, though they themselves are frequently invisible. They are embedded and purposefully hidden, sometimes in plain sight, sometimes arcane and inscrutable, or so omnipresent that we just think, oh, that's just how that works. For all of their power, pervasive yet invisible, dispassionate yet responsive, algorithms might even approach something of a spiritual level of influence. Of course, we don't pray to the algorithm, though for all of the important stuff over which they hold person-designed, though semi-autonomous authority, they can control our money, pilot aircraft, formulate medications, diagnose diseases, design and run political campaigns. Maybe we might as well. Eli Pariser developed and named this phenomenon the filter bubble in his book, The Filter Bubble. He warns not about soccer coaches, but about the dangers of being isolated from people and media that don't share your view of the world. Pariser warns that, quote, algorithmic induction can lead to a kind of information determinism, where our past clickstreams can entirely decide our future. He fears, quote, a public sphere sorted and manipulated by algorithms, fragmented by design and hostile to dialogue. No! As the world becomes increasingly readable by and possibly made for powerful computational processes, it perhaps behooves us to respect the powerful truth of their presence. And then, of course, welcome our hopefully benevolent orange juice and tax refund managing overlords.
The important takeaway here is that there are multiple layers of this idea of hybridization and human-animal unions. Now, leaving that aside, there's perhaps something even more important within this whole story of the sign of Taurus and biotechnology. And that being the matter of a very important star that is currently within Taurus called Algol. Now, Algol has a reputation of being one of the most malefic stars in the sky. It comes from the Arabic Algol, or the ghoul, and Chinese astrologers morbidly called it dead bodies piled up. It is associated with decapitations or emotionally, losing one's head, flying off the handle, and passionate expressions of rage. Algol, if you didn't know, is actually Medusa, or the head of Medusa. In the story of Medusa, she is vanquished by the hero Perseus, who cuts off her head and then uses her head as a kind of weapon or technology in order to defeat the sea monster who threatens to devour the princess Andromeda. And now, as we all know, the Medusa was a creature whose head was, although once very beautiful, is now very frightening, and instead of hair, she has a head full of wriggling snakes, and anyone who beholds her is turned to stone. So how does this relate to biotechnology? Well, if you haven't intuited already, Perseus uses the head of the Medusa as a weapon. This is to say, he uses biology as technology. Now, this might seem like a bit of a stretch, and not many astrologers actually know about this. However, it is within the consciousness of people who are actually working within the fields of biotechnology, as well as those who keep some of this exotic technology secret for the time being and will likely be releasing this into the world over the next few years as Uranus transits through Taurus.
We are producing a lot more data than we're capable of storing today. We think that to put a dent on the problem, we need a radical new solution. And so we're looking at DNA as one such solution.
And one of the reasons that we're using DNA is its density is orders of magnitude higher than anything that exists today. Its reliability and resiliency, and then it has relevancy. We think that as long as there are humans alive, we'll care about reading our own DNA. And that means that we'll have a storage format that will be with us that will always be relevant.
We have been working on using DNA for data storage for several years now, but the process so far has been incredibly manual. There are literally people moving around with pipettes in their hands. So the only way we're going to make DNA data storage scale up to be usable and go mainstream is by automating it. And what we've done with the project that you're going to learn more about now, is showing that it's possible to automate the entire process from bits to molecules and back to bits.
The writing process takes your data file and encodes those ones and zeros into ACs, Ts, and Gs. Those ACs, Ts, and Gs are actually what gets sent to the device itself. Every base that flows into the column incorporates itself onto a strand of DNA. So once all the DNA bases have been incorporated into the strands on the column, the strands need to be removed from the column. So we pump a chemical mixture into the column, which frees them from their solid support and pushes them into a liquid storage bottle. So once we decide to read the data off the DNA, the read master mix is applied to the DNA storage pool. That master mix prepares the DNA to be read. Now that the DNA is readable, it gets pumped into the read device where it gets translated into ACs, Ts, and Gs sequences that the computer can understand. Those sequences then get decoded back into ones and zeros. Moving into the future, what we'd like to do is move fluids around in a more intelligent way, which is accomplished by the Purple Drop project.
So we're basically making the biological primitives, moving and mixing droplets, accessible like software is today, because you can just compose it as much as you want. So you can start with simple systems, and then you can build it up into like an automatic experimentation machine.
Basically what you're doing is, because water is polarizable, you can generate a charge in it. And so by changing the charge on the board in different locations, you can attract the water to those locations.
And I think the other thing that's interesting to realize about this result too is that this might be pointing to a new kind of computer system that has an electronic component and a molecular component. So you use molecules for what they're good at, use electronics for what they're good at, and then you integrate them and show that it's actually possible to build a system that has dry electronics, wet molecules, and they together do something amazing.
Microsoft has seen this impending crisis of not being able to store information as we move forward and invest in a technology that could revolutionize the way that we think about data storage.
This is he who came by water and blood, Jesus Christ, not by the water only, but by the water and the blood. And the Spirit is the one who testifies, because the Spirit is the truth. For there are three that testify, the Spirit and the water and the blood, and these three agree. If we receive the testimony of men, the testimony of God is greater. For this is the testimony of God that he has borne concerning his Son. Whoever believes in the Son of God has the testimony in himself. Whoever does not believe God has made him a liar, because he has not believed in the testimony that God has borne concerning his Son. And this is the testimony, that God gave us eternal life, and this life is in his Son. Whoever has the Son has life. Whoever does not have the Son of God does not have life. I write these things to you who believe in the name of the Son of God, that you may know that you have eternal life. And this is the confidence that we have toward him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us in whatever we ask, we know that we have the requests that we have asked of him. If anyone sees his brother committing a sin not leading to death, he shall ask, and God will give him life, to those who commit sins that do not lead to death. There is sin that leads to death. I do not say that one should pray for that. All wrongdoing is sin, but there is sin that does not lead to death. We know that everyone who has been born of God does not keep on sinning, but he who was born of God protects him, and the evil one does not touch him. We know that we are from God, and the whole world lies in the power of the evil one. And we know that the Son of God has come, and has given us understanding, so that we may know him who is true, and we are in him who is true, in his Son Jesus Christ. He is the true God, and eternal life. Little children, keep yourselves from idols.
Ezekiel 28:15 described Lucifer as, "Thou wast perfect in thy ways, from the day that thou wast created." But Lucifer was so perfect, so handsome, so divine, and so strong when in comparison to his peers, that he grew arrogant. His superior qualities to God's other creations caused him to become prideful, and pretty soon, he believed that it was he who should be in God's place. He wanted to be God himself, and given that he was deemed worthy to be in the presence of God more than any other, and that he arguably understood God better than any other, Lucifer could think of no one better than himself to be the one to overthrow his Lord. It can even be argued that Lucifer's ambition is greater than God's, that not only does he want to take God's place, but wants a place even higher than which God sits. Pride would spur on Lucifer to act on his thoughts, that he was indeed more powerful than God. It was pride in which blinded him, pride which led him down a path of haughtiness, and pride which saw him begin to manipulate the other angels into serving him. After all, his intellect was superior to that of the other angels, and so deceiving them was not beyond his means. While some did remain loyal to God, many of the angels who, like Lucifer, would become known as fallen angels, began to recognize him as the superior being. While Ezekiel 28:15 notes Lucifer as being perfect in every way, he also notes that iniquity was found in him, thus diminishing his perfection. With a third of the angels on side, Lucifer launched an attack on God, and a mighty war for the heavens took place. But Lucifer was not counting on the strong resistance put up by another archangel, the one known as Michael. Unable to defeat Michael in his current form, thus lending Lucifer to doubt his own perfection at this point, Lucifer transforms into a dragon, as noted in Revelation 12:7-8, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. While you might say Lucifer had the courage to rebel in the first place, although many would say this was not courage, and more so blind arrogance, he is ultimately defeated by Archangel Michael. By this, we understand how powerful the biblical God actually is, that Lucifer is defeated without God actually having to get involved in the battle. You might argue that God worked through Michael in order to overcome Lucifer, but in any case, Lucifer's defeat is absolute. Revelation 12:9 goes on to state, "And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world, as he was cast out into earth, and his angels were cast out with him." This is also where we see Lucifer referred to by his other namesake Satan, which he earns after he has been defeated. His defeat is more than just a loss of pride though. Lucifer loses everything. He's not only shunned by God, but he is cast out from heaven, along with all the other angels who had sided with him. Gone are his glory days of being the most splendid, perfect being of all of God's creations, and instead, he takes the role of the complete opposite. His fall to earth is described by Luke, who quotes Jesus in 10:18, "I beheld Satan as lightning fell from heaven." Lucifer's ultimate fate is detailed in Revelation 20:10, where it's understood that the devil that deceived them was cast out into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night, forever and ever. It's understood though that Lucifer would not tolerate his sentence quietly. In fact, from the very day of him being cast out, Lucifer began to plot his revenge against God. Seeing as Lucifer was no longer God's favourite creation, Lucifer would target his vengeance against that which took his place, mankind itself. When God created Adam and Eve, he tested them, forbidding them from eating from the tree of knowledge. Seeing an opportunity to scorn God, Lucifer snuck his way into the Garden of Eden, posed as a snake. Furthermore, when we look at the origin of Lucifer's name, we'll find that Lucifer is actually Latin for light bringer or morning star. Isaiah 14:12 states, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cast to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation, in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit."
Clever. When I have the map, I will be free, and the world will be different, because I have understanding.
Understanding of what, Master?
Of digital watches. And soon I shall have understanding of video cassette recorders and car telephones. And when I have understanding of them, I shall have understanding of computers. And when I have understanding of computers, I shall be the supreme being. God isn't interested in technology. He knows nothing of the potential of the microchip or the silicon revolution. Look how he spends his time. 43 species of parrots. Nipples for men.
Slugs.
Slugs? He created slugs. If I were creating a world, I wouldn't mess about with butterflies and daffodils. I would have started with lasers. 8 o'clock, day one. Sorry.
I just can't wait for the new technological dawn.
Of this new worldview, which you can call dataism because it invests authority in data, the central tenet is that given enough data, especially biometric data about a person, and given enough computing power, Google or Facebook can create an algorithm that knows you better than you know yourself. Now, how does it work in practice? Let's give an example so it doesn't stay too abstract. Let's say you want to buy a book. I'm in the book business, so it's very close to my heart. How do you choose which books to buy? So, which books to read? So in the Middle Ages, you go to the priest, you go to the rabbi, and they tell you, read the Bible. It's the best book in the world. All the answers are there. You don't need anything else. And then comes humanism and says, yeah, the Bible, there are some nice chapters there, but there are many other good books in the world. Don't let anybody tell you what books to buy. You just go, and the customer is always right and all that. You just go to a bookstore, you wander between the aisles, you take this book, you take that book, you flip, you look inside, you have some gut instinct that, this is an interesting book, take it and read it. You follow your own instinct and feelings. Now you go online to the Amazon virtual bookshop, and the moment you enter, an algorithm pops up. I know you. I've been following you and following millions of people like you, and based on everything I know about your previous likes and dislikes, I recommend that you read this book. You'll find it very interesting. But this is really just the first baby step. The next step, if there are people here who read books on Kindle, then you probably know, you should know, that as you read the book is reading you. For the first time in history, books are reading people rather than vice versa. As you read a book on Kindle, Kindle is following you, and Kindle, which means Amazon, knows which pages you read slow, which pages you read fast, and on which page you stop reading the book. And based on that, Amazon have quite a good idea of what you like or dislike. But it is still very primitive. The next stage, which is technically feasible today, is to connect Kindle to face recognition software, which already exists. And then Kindle knows when you laugh, when you cry, when you're bored, when you're angry. The final step, which probably will be possible in 5-10 years, is to connect Kindle to biometric sensors on or inside your body, which constantly monitor your blood pressure, your heart rate, your sugar level, your brain activity. And then Kindle, which means Amazon, knows the exact emotional impact of every sentence you read in the book. You read a sentence, what happened to your blood pressure? This is the kind of information that Amazon could have. And, by the time you finish the book, let's say you read Tolstoy's War and Peace. By the time you finish the book, you forgot most of it. But Amazon will never forget anything. By the time you finish War and Peace, Amazon knows exactly who you are, what is your personality type, and how to press your emotional buttons. And based on such information, it can not only recommend books to you, it can do far more spectacular and frightening things, like recommend to you what to study, or whom to date, or whom to vote for on election.
That way, there are 3 attributes of God, and they are non-communicable. That means that you and I will never be omnipotent, we will never be omnipresent, we will never be omniscient. Those omnis belong to God alone. I think it was Tony Evans who said that whatever there has to be done, God is everywhere present to do it. He has infinite knowledge, so he knows what needs to be done. And he also has omnipotence. He has the power to do it.
He believed that it was he who should be in God's place. He wanted to be God himself, and given that he was deemed worthy to be in the presence of God more than any other, and that he arguably understood God better than any other, Lucifer could think of no one better than himself to be the one to overthrow his lord.
And the big products of the coming century will not be shoes or clothes or cars or weapons. The big product of the 21st century are going to be bodies and minds. So I think we are heading towards the upgrading of Homo sapiens into gods. Will replace natural selection by intelligent design. You have, especially in the US, this big argument between natural selection and intelligent design. And the funny thing is, the ironic thing is, that the people who believe in natural selection, I think they're obviously right about the past. But the people who believe in intelligent design, they are right about the future. The future of life belongs to intelligent design, but the designers, the intelligent designers, will not be some gods above the clouds. We are going to be the intelligent designers of the future of life in the universe.
Then I desired to know the truth about the fourth beast, which was different from all the rest, exceedingly terrifying, with its teeth of iron and claws of bronze, and which devoured and broke in pieces, and stamped what was left with its feet. And about the 10 horns that were in its head, and the other horn that came up, and before which 3 of them fell, the horn that had eyes and a mouth that spoke great things, and that seemed greater than its companions. As I looked, this horn made war with the saints, and prevailed over them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given for the saints of the Most High. And the time came when the saints possessed the kingdom. Thus he said, As for the fourth beast, there shall be a fourth kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all the kingdoms, and it shall devour the whole earth, and trample it down, and break it to pieces. As for the 10 horns, out of this kingdom 10 kings shall arise, and another shall arise after them. He shall be different from the former ones, and shall put down 3 kings. He shall speak words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and shall think to change the times and the law. And they shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. But the court shall sit in judgment, and his dominion shall be taken away, to be consumed and destroyed to the end. And the kingdom and the dominion, and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven, shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. Their kingdom shall be an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey them. Here is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts greatly alarmed me, and my color changed. But I kept the matter in my heart.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G. How's you doing right now? The one you met at the campus day. Wait until you see her.